Welcome to the show, the podcast that dives into the battles women fight on the front lines and within. I'm your host, Olivia Nunn. This series is proudly sponsored by Mill Mentor, the military's community's largest on-demand mentorship network, built by veterans, for veterans, and their families. From job support to networking, find your mentor at millmentor.com. Now, let's dive into today's episode where resilience, service, and strength take center stage. This is Women of War, and I'm here with a longtime good friend, Rochelle Hemingway, an Air Force veteran. I'm going to give you crap for being Air Force because that's what we can do.
Well, that's what we do. I don't know why we do that, but we just do it to ourselves.
I think it's because, we're just a little jealous that you guys stay in hotels and we are sitting outside in tents, but I digress. Thank you for being here with me on the show.
You're absolutely welcome. Thank you for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. Why Air Force? Why didn't you go to the best service, the United States Army?
Hey, listen, I almost was there. I really was. And you say, why Air Force? You asked the question. My dad was in the Air Force for 23 years. However, I was not at a point where I could serve. I was actually way out of the weight standards. I was 200 pounds, had been an obese child. And so I lost some weight before my senior year of high school. And my girlfriend that I worked with at a restaurant that we would work part-time at. And she said, we need to get out of this boring city of Kokomo, Indiana. Like, we should do something big. And I was like, well, what is that? Let's just do this buddy program that the military is offering. So back in the day, you could go with some persons and you call them their buddy and you guys enlist together and you kind of go through the training and so forth. And I never really saw myself going into the military at all until she pointed that out, that I would make the weight standard, that we could do this and we can get out of Kokomo, Indiana. I never talked about going into the military with my dad, ever. And so here we are at the recruiter station. And the recruiter that used to work with my dad, because he was a recruiter at one point before he retired, he saw us going into the office. And at that time, all the branches were in the same office. And he says, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm just looking and going into the military. And he's like, well, you're not going in any other branch. You are going in the Air Force because your dad would have my ass. So I am not, going to allow you to go into the Army. And I was like, what? So she went into the Army and I went into the Air Force. So there was no buddy program. And so that's kind of how it all started.
We almost had you. But, it's funny because most parents, if they're in the service, are partial to the service that they're in. Mm-hmm. And because your father was like, nope, I'm Air Force, you're going to go Air Force. And my dad was like that. I'm Army, you're going Army. Uh-huh. Or more like, I knew I wanted to do Army because that's what my dad was doing. And I was daddy's little girl. So I'm sure if he had been Air Force or Marines or anything else, I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is that you said that you were an obese child and that the service might have not been your calling. And that to me is I was kind of astounded by that, to be honest, because the person that I know today, the woman that I know today, one, you're not obese. No. You're very fit. Yeah. You and I are not only friends in real life. Yeah. Very good friends in real life. We're also social media friends. Yep. And you post a lot of your fitness journey, right? You're up at the crack of dawn. You are on your Peloton. We're also Peloton buddies, right? You also do a lot of running. I do not like running, but I will meet you on the bike. Yeah. And it's astounding to me as somebody who's very active and very fit had a different beginning. Mm-hmm. And so talk to me a little bit about that, how the military was a big catalyst for you to find a fit side of you.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I look back at that time. I was that child that wasn't confident, had low self-esteem. I have a picture that reminds me of this 16-year-old girl that's standing behind balloons. Like the balloons were up in front of me at my birthday party that my family had given to me, which was an indication that I didn't want to be seen. And it was my weight. I used to get joked a lot in school, almost to the point where people would make jokes and I'd be laughing with them just because I wanted to fit in and I wanted to belong. So when I lost the weight, and it was purely by movement, I was working double shifts at this restaurant in the morning and then at night, and it just naturally came off. And so I was like, oh my goodness, my mom thought I was sick. She wanted to take me to the doctor because you know how it is, like they want to make sure that there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, well, Mom, I was 60 pounds over the weight that I should be at for my height. And so going into the military, I struggled for the first 10 years with my weight and my fitness. I didn't do it the right way. I didn't lose the weight the right way because I was not eating. I was just going to one shift to the next. And so I was on the weight management program, and that's when they had within the 5 pounds, you had to get weighed every month. And if you didn't meet the weight standard, then you would get administrative paperwork for it. So I ended up getting several letter of counseling, several letter of reprimands, because I could not figure out what worked for me and what I enjoyed to do. And it wasn't until I was stationed in Germany, and I was at Bitburg Air Base in Germany. And I just decided I need to get a handle of this. If I'm going to stay in, and I had seen some of the leaders and how they were carrying themselves, fit, that image of being in the military. And I wanted that. Like I made a commitment that I wanted to serve and I wanted to stay in, but I needed to be able to manage this. I didn't know how to until I got a bench, one of those stepping benches. And I bought a few workout videos from Firm. If you've ever heard of that, like it's a big mogul fitness company that produced a lot of home videos with small hand weights. And I got up every day before I went into work and did these home videos. And then I realized it was eating that was involved too, that I needed to watch what I was eating and putting in, putting out. And then I actually enjoyed the process. And so this whole process of transforming myself from being like up and down, my max weight without, being pregnant with AJ was like 180 pounds in uniform, which for my height was well outside the weight standard. So after a while, I realized, oh my goodness, I actually enjoy being fit and I actually feel good. I feel more confident. Like this is probably the little secret that I have been missing this whole time. And just from then on, it's what I do. It's a habit that I have formed over the years. If I don't exercise or if I don't eat right, I automatically know. And it doesn't take very much for me to get back on track if I fall off the wagon.
Not too long ago, I had a discussion with Leah, and she runs Sea Waves, and she talked about eating disorders within the military.
Oh, yeah.
And just outside of eating disorders, right? Because eating disorders is the deep end of the whole health and fitness for women.
Yeah.
And I think while I didn't have necessarily an eating disorder per se from that perspective, mm-hmm. I had an eating disorder, and this is what I mean by it. Exactly what you talk about. I was all over the map when it came to the way I looked and felt about myself, how I was treating my body, how I managed myself when it came to physical fitness and standards. And I really struggled with how I felt about myself, my self-esteem. On the outward appearance, everyone's like, she has it all. She's confident. She's capable, right? This type A aggressive female that just got her shit done.
Yeah.
But inside, that was not the case, right? The inside demons were not saying those things. And I struggled consistently with my weight. And if you looked at my annual evaluation report, because it reports your height and weight, my weight was always this 20, 25 pound sliding weight.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about the 2 pregnancies that I had towards the end of my career. We're talking about just on the average, I was carrying 25 pounds too heavy for my frame.
Yep.
I'm 5'1", right?
Yeah.
And I should be, somewhere between 115 to about 125 pounds. This is about the healthy average weight.
Yeah.
That was not me. I was going from 125 to 145 for me. That was what I was doing. And most people who knew me and saw me in uniform thought I was fine. That was normal, right? Because I carried it well.
Yeah.
But if you saw my uniform pictures compared to me now at 118, 120 pounds, you're like, holy crap, Olivia, you're kind of chunky, right? I'm like, I know, but I just hit it because I stunk at physical fitness. I hated it. And 2, I put mission first. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I put mission first. I was the first one in, the last one out of the office.
Yeah.
And nowhere in that was Olivia going to the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, I showed up for physical fitness formation,
right.
but that's not what I was doing. There was some crisis that happened that I had to run back to the office and handle. So I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing. And then you talk about the food part, which is they say 80% of your body happens in the kitchen. And man, did I not understand that until after I got out of the Army and decided to get into pageantry, into bodybuilding, and how much that is such a key component. I was doing everything else. Popeyes, McDonald's, Burger King, because you just run through the to-go line because you're so busy working.
Yeah.
And I struggled
so
much.
Yeah. I think we all have had a little touch of that, especially as women, because the pressure is on. I mean, we're in the cooker, all right? We are compared to our peers, which are mostly men. And we have hormonal shifts that happen. And we're not even putting that into the equation. We're just thinking, oh my goodness, I've gained 20 pounds. I've got to get this off. So I will resort to eating nothing for 2 or 3 days, or, a liquid diet, if you will, or some scammed diet that's out there. I remember one time I was on like a grapefruit diet or whatever, and I'm like, I'm trying my best to get this weight off before I have to go weigh in. But your body just doesn't work that way. It's just not designed. So understanding the art and science behind, weight management. And, for me, I've kept the weight off for over 30 years or so. It's probably been maybe 25 years, not quite 30, but I realized that it was because I just made a commitment to really figure out what worked for me and just stick with it. And now I don't look at eating and working out as having to do a physical fitness test, because that's not where we're at anymore. It's more about quality of life. It's about mobility. It's about heart health, because that mindset of what we were before, we have to be at the highest level of our PT standards, because that's how you get promoted and that's how you go places, right? Because sometimes it is the defining discriminator when it comes down to packages being compared. Like, let's look at this fitness, and where they're at. So, I've designed something new to where it's more of, how do you feel? Can we walk? Right? Can we like move our muscles and, be strong, and feel powerful in the body that we have. So it's quite interesting.
Because you had to put fitness in part of the equation and figure that out.
Yeah.
To be able to be successful in your career. Where was the moment in your career that you realized that I am meant for this and I am meant to lead?
Oh, so I was stationed in Japan, Yokota Air Base. And when I arrived and they were assigning people to go here or there, right? They put me in the back of the clinic. I was a medic and I was in the very back, and I was in an internal medicine clinic. They had 2 doctors and 2 other technicians. So I was the 3rd technician. And it was easy. I was like, the people that I had to supervise, they were amazing. They were winning awards. The doctors were loved by their patients. You know, we had the older population. So they were kind of easier, you know, to kind of manage. We didn't have a heavy workload. And you know how the military does, you know, they see potential. They're just like, we're going to move you over here and see how you do. So I went from supervising these two great airmen to over 40 in a weekend. They had another person that was in charge of this clinic, and they fired them. And they said they were not, you know, fit for leadership. And they outranked me. But all of a sudden, I am now in charge of over 40 technicians in the largest clinic in the facility, and also supervising somebody that outranks me. So they had this whole long discussion. My chief at the time, and which I admire and respect to this day, she said, "Yeah, you were back there in the corner, and all we were getting is great feedback about you being an amazing leader. So we just needed to move you into different territory." And I got my ass handed to me every single day. Because, you know, as it, you know, you're supervising people with an array of challenges. Just and you're having to figure all this out. So I had to problem solve and also, you know, create some sanity in a world of chaos. And when I was able to kind of look back on it, it was that moment when I said, I've been called to lead. I never really thought too much about leadership until that point. And then I realized leadership is just not going to work and just having this position and this title and all these other amenities that come with it. It's about what people are saying, you know, what people are coming to you about. What do they appreciate? You know, what do they share with you in the moments? And how can you articulate that in the best way to serve the better good of the entire team? And so from that point on, I started to develop my skills and really looking at what I needed to get better at and refining every time I got an opportunity to lead at a higher level. So yeah, it was a really good time for me to learn and grow. So yeah, that's a great question. That was a really great question, Olivia.
As someone who grew up with a father that was in the military, and deciding that, you know, the military is going to be for you, especially the challenge of having to meet height, weight requirement.
Yeah.
Did that, and also being a woman of color, have any bearing in terms of challenges or no challenge? And I doubt that, but just curious. In terms of navigating your experience in rising through the ranks to achieve what you wanted to achieve. And from the moment that you came in, was your initial idea like, yeah, I'm just going to do my initial enlistment and get out? Or were you like, no, I'm going to make this a career and I'm going to make E9? You know, I'm just curious what your initial thought process was when you came in. Like, what was the Air Force going to be for you?
It was my way to get out of Kokomo, Indiana, and to get out of my dad's house. It was just that, you know what I mean? It wasn't any thought to it at all. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to serve 4 years and get out, or I just didn't have a plan. I just was winging it the whole way through. Like, honestly, I look at, I was so naive. I was this young girl who just wanted to party because I was like, I can now. And my parents can't say nothing about it. Like, they don't know what's going on. But I also had to learn my job, which wasn't so hard initially as a medic. So, you know, I didn't see any of what had happened. I had no plan to get to the point where I got to in my career. Now, as far as being a woman of color, I didn't realize that was a factor until I was at Yokota and was serving in that position. Like, I was so, again, naive, not even really paying attention to the dynamics and the system and how it was designed. But when I saw the chief that was supporting, our medical facility at the time was a Black female. First I've ever seen in my entire career. And I had been in like 15 years at that point. So I saw the way that she was being treated, the way that she was being talked down in meeting, and she would hold her ground. She would, present facts. She would be very, still in what she was saying. She would share, in this presence. She had this aura about her. Like, you're not going to pull me down. All right. Like, yes, you may try. So I observed her. I watched her. I studied her. And I said, is this really what happens when you start to be in these leadership roles? And sure enough, started to see that as I was getting, every different level and throughout the career. So I was like, okay, now we got to use strategy. All right. Like, I didn't know even what to do. I just started to write things out of things that I saw that went well, things that did not go well, how I would handle situations if they came up again. What are some options? How can I get more allies? How can I get people to see what I'm speaking to? I mean, it was just a whole nother playbook that I had built for myself, because I was like, I don't know how long I'm going to stay in this military thing, but I just definitely don't want my experience to be so hard. Even though it was hard, it wasn't as if I didn't have options.
That's, excuse me, that's crazy to me that you were 15 years in before you saw senior leadership in terms of a reflection of who you are. When we talk oftentimes of diversity, we say and talk about seeing yourself of everything from your ethnicity, your gender, your upbringing. All of those things matter. And those things matter, especially when you come from a place of less than. Mm-hmm. And less than can be everything from, you didn't have as much money growing up.
Yep.
Less than because you didn't have the opportunities, right? Whatever it may be. And so you have to be able to see yourself in order to project yourself to the next level.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why, one of the nonprofits that I'm heavily involved in is Pan-Pacific American Leaders and Mentors. And that organization was started by General Shinseki, who was the first Asian American to be the chief of staff of the Army. Mm-hmm. And he started it because when he looked around, he said, why do I not see as many Asians at the top? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's crazy that 15 years in, you didn't see yourself reflected in terms of leadership and the ability to be inspired. But what I do love is that you stayed in, maybe not because that was the sole reason, mm-hmm. but you stayed in to be able to set an example. You achieved so much within your career. You were able to be that light for others that came behind you.
Yeah.
But you and I both know, as women of from a minority perspective, that that's not easy, right? Oftentimes we come to work just putting our heads down.
Yeah.
And just, we want to be part of the team.
Yeah.
We want to be included. We want to be part of the overarching success. But far too often, there's many that do not want us to be there, right? The seat is not going to be pulled out for us. They want us to go home.
Yes.
talk to me about one of those moments
Oh,
where they're like, you are not welcomed here, but you're just like, you, I'm going to prove to you this is my seat at the table, and I'm
yeah.
going to do circles around you.
It's crazy, but all the things that happen that you're talking about happened towards the very end of my career. So when I was selected as a chief, um, I didn't see the writing on the wall that I was going to be in this pool to be selected as a command chief master sergeant, which is one of the three people that run an installation or a military base. So in the Air Force, it's the wing commander, vice commander, and then the command chief master sergeant. So, I got selected for this role, and it's huge. Like, my whole entire family was just like, oh my gosh, like, this is just so great. And as much as I wanted to celebrate with them, I already knew what was to come because I was stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota, where the minorities was a very small number, and there was no one that looked like me at the levels of leadership that I was going into. And I remember this incident that occurred when I just moved in. So on base, you have to stay on base when you get to these levels of leadership because you have to respond at any point of whatever's going on. So there was another chief that lived across the street. Now, they were a group chief, which is, a pretty sizable amount of people that they have to oversee. What I thought was going to be a casual conversation of welcome, so glad that you are here. Here's let's meet my family. Here's my wife. Here are my kids. If you need anything, just let me know. Like that's kind of how I thought that this conversation was going, but it didn't go that way. It went into, how did you get this job? All right. I also interviewed for this job, and I don't know why I didn't get selected. And so I quickly went from, being warm and open and welcoming, and having this thought of, oh my goodness, they really want me to be here. I went into the other strategy that I use, which is now you get to see exactly how this game is going to be played. All right. You want to ask me questions about my qualifications and how I got here and why I'm here and all the things. And I said, I wasn't the hiring authority. The hiring authority is the general. You want to go talk to the general about how I'm here and how I got here and all that other stuff. That is up to you. You could do that. You can make an appointment. I'm sure they will sit you down. But that's when I realized that I was going to be in for it. And for the next 2.5 years of me being there, it was a fight every single day. And instead of like wearing myself completely out, I just started to use strategy. Your approach is now going to be indicative of how your group gets to be, played in the game. So if that's how you want to do that, then what I do is prioritize. I can come up with ways to make sure that, you don't get the full look, if you will, because I already know now what you're trying to do. And there was a lot of undermining. There was a lot of gaslighting. There was a lot of double talking. All right. There was a lot of look over here, don't look over there, because they have been able to get away with these behaviors for a very long time. And the community, the minority community, I knew that I needed to be there to let them to see what those possibilities could look like of how I can continue to lead in chaos, confusion, and mayhem. And it was during the pandemic, George Floyd being killed, the insurrection. I was leading through all of that. And so I had to ground myself. I had to ground myself every single day. So that way I am not responding the way that I was feeling like I needed to. Like I did not want to flip a table and go all the way out of control. So I had to learn how to manage my emotions and not let people get the best of me.
Let's take a break, but when I come back, I want to talk about the internal war and how that whole series and what that did to you mentally.
Yes.
Mil Mentor is the military community's largest on-demand mentorship network built by veterans. You pick your own mentor and as many as you like from over 1,000. Whether you're a military spouse looking for resume help, a veteran building his or her network, or maybe you are about to transition, or perhaps you are about to start your very own company and become an entrepreneur. There are recruiters, executives, and professionals across multiple fields waiting to help you. Sign up as a mentor or mentee at milmentor.com. So you just got done talking about one of these experiences in your career that just felt like you were moving mountains.
Mm-hmm.
All for the very simple fact that you were a minority and a woman.
Yeah.
Which oftentimes, many of those that are going to be listening in can relate to.
Yeah.
With that being said, you talked about how you had people that just were undermining you,
mm-hmm.
that just were waiting for you to fail.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before. Oftentimes, that is true,
mm-hmm.
whether it's in your face or the ones that aren't in your face, but you feel it. Yeah. You're not going to be able to point it out, but you just feel it. And then here's the other internal part. You put that pressure on.
Yeah.
You put that insane amount of pressure because you know that the spotlight is on you. And if you mess this up, the door that was slightly cracked when you stepped through is going to be slammed so hard shut after you that you don't want to mess it up for the women that come behind you.
Yeah.
So you work incredibly hard
mm-hmm.
to prove that women are supposed to be there.
Yep.
And you talk about the chaos.
Yeah.
You talk about the insane pressure, chaos, and there's excitement in that too.
Yeah.
What was the grounding that you used to be able to work through that pressure, through that chaos, because you know that they are waiting for you to fall flat on your face, but you know that you've got to shine through this. And it's not about being the best. Yeah. You're just trying to prove, damn it, I'm supposed to be here too.
Yeah. One of the first things that me and my husband talked about, because it was a family thing. This was a family decision. I had an opportunity to go and serve in this particular role. And it was all just based on the decision of my family, which at the time was my husband, because our son was young, so, and I talked to him and he already warned me. He was a maintainer. All right. So he maintainer his whole entire career. So he understood what environment I was getting myself into. So I would say like the support system had to be so solid that, at any point I can call him, my mom, my dad, a couple of girlfriends that understood what I was about to get into, so that I could vent, that I can share, that I can scream, I can cry, all those different emotions that I was going through. So I had that. And then, for sure, the gym. Okay. Like we built a gym in our house because I needed that to be a part of this journey. I knew I could not be getting to the gym. And you were talking about, not being able to get into the gym because of the level of responsibilities that you have. And my, fix was that it was like, well, we got to get a bike. We've got to get a, treadmill, and we've got to get weights, and we've got to get all the equipment in here. So I don't give myself an excuse because I need this. If I don't move my body and get these disempowering thoughts out of my head, of where I'm at, about who's going to come after me and who's going to be, trying to, pull one over me. So I really felt that was me. I took my lunch to work and my snacks to work with me because I needed the right foods to fuel me. All right. And have my brain power. I needed brain activities to be working. So that way, when people were quick to say something, I would be like, no, okay, no, I remember this. We're going to do this. Right. And I also really, thought about the legacy. This is where I really started to think through legacy. You get to a certain point in your career and it's not about you. It's really not. It's about who's going to come after you. And what I wanted people to say about me when I had left. And, they fired the person they hired after me, right? Within 6 months. It was just like they went in and they were doing behaviors or indicative that he was not supposed to be there. And, they hired a woman after him. All right. Because they got it. It took a lot out of me at times to show up fully, authentically, boldly, confidently in myself about what I knew was the right thing to do. But now looking back at it, I was like, you know what? I did create a path for another woman to come up behind me. It may not have been right after me, but it was, as soon as that person was gone, they hired her. And she is also a medic. All right. So I felt like I had done my job. And now there is this opportunity. And she's doing extremely well. Okay. She is slaying it. And so I felt like even in a moment where we feel like, oh my goodness, this is just so hard. It's so challenging. It's taken all of me out of me. I had to reframe. I had to look at more as what is the future of this position? What it can look like and how can it be different?
I like that you talk about showing up in leadership, even though it's scary and it's hard in terms of being your full authentic self.
Yeah.
I think whether you're a male or a female, showing up authentically as yourself is scary. And I think it's an added layer as a woman to do that, especially in male dominated spaces.
Oh, yeah.
But I think when you do that, and it's crazy scary to do that, the reward on the other side is knowing that you led truly well and that you gave your best.
Yeah.
Assuming that the real reason why you did it was truly from the calling of leading from the heart, because you wanted to lead people so that they were the best versions of themselves. Because I always said, if you're not here to lead, mentor, and guide people to be the best versions of themselves, see yourself out of the military.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you cannot be selfish.
Yeah.
And for me, that one of those moments for me was leading an all-male organization, and some of the guys not wanting to have a female commander. Mm-hmm. They were very adamant. I remember them talking about it. They didn't know I was in the back of the room when they were talking about it.
Yeah.
And then after coming back from my third tour in Iraq, they, a couple of them said, you proved to me that women can be in the military, can take on an organization, can go to combat with us, and I'd go back to hell with you again.
Yeah.
To me, I did my job.
Absolutely.
I led effectively.
Yes.
And the things that I was doing as a leader, they fought me. They're like, oh, I don't want to do it this way, ma'am. Why are you making it do this way? The things that you're saying, like, you are crazy to me. And I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
But this is the way that I'm going to lead, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to push you in a different direction. I am different because I am different as a person. I'm different because I am a woman. I see things differently. Yes. But I have a method to my madness. Just trust me. Go on this walk with me,
Yeah.
So I love that you said authentically yourself.
Yeah.
You talk about legacy and the impact and change, and you showed that. And now that you're out, now that you've hung up your boots, and you've become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You talk about branding. You and I have, a love and affinity for pink.
Yes, we do.
Talk to me about the legacy that you want to leave now. what is this journey that you find yourself on? Who are you today now that you are no longer the person that wears the uniform, knowing that transition leads to transformation?
Yeah. So the woman that you see today is operating with no cap. And when I say that, in the military, they kind of put a limit. There's so much you could say. You got to kind of be scripted, and you can't go outside of what we're planning for, like our mission and the vision and all those things, right? And although I did it very well, I knew there was more. I wanted more. So when I retired, I was in that floundering world of, I don't know where I fit in this world. I don't know where I belong. Who's going to get what I'm talking about? Like, I was just like, I am not good. Okay. So I went through this whole emotional journey. But then one day I just said, stop it. Stop it. You have all of what you need. You have done 30 years of military service. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. And so when people see me, they see the unfiltered, they see the unstoppable, the, woman that's getting after what she desires, and most importantly, what she deserves. And I'm bringing along others with me. I mean, this is a movement that I'm on right now where I'm helping others to see their full potential outside of a structured system. And we can get so confused or, wrapped around our identity in the military. And, I just didn't want that to be the whole story. That is part of the story. I do lead now differently. I lead in style, okay, because that's just one of the things that I absolutely love to do. But I also lead with this conviction of helping others to see that they can do this too. So when we create businesses or create, opportunities for ourselves, it's in a way to show the world what we have learned. And I just want to be that woman. I want to be that woman. And they said, do you remember the Slay Queen? Do you remember how she would just do whatever? And she's just all over the place, and it's a journey for me. I never wanted to be, I don't want to be boxed in anymore. I was boxed in. And it's different now that I know, so many new things. It's just been a steep learning curve for me. Cause I'm like, all this was going on while I was in service. I had no idea. And I just been open-minded, and growing. And I have seen the maturity. My maturity level has increased since I retired from the military. I'm no longer myopic where I think in one way. I see different opinions and perspectives from different walks of life, way outside of what I saw when I was in the military. And that, I think, makes me a better person because you can start to relate. And I'm using more of my emotional intelligence now than I ever have. I am who I am. I am who I am. And I don't have to just be in somebody's face. I don't have to be tolerated. We get to pick and choose now. And so I think that's the beauty of being in entrepreneurship or just doing something differently than you did when you were in service.
You talk about the identity piece. Yeah. That is huge.
It's huge.
And, as you know, I was with U.S. Army Soldier for Life, which was in the business of transitioning service members.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, about the whole transition part in terms of identity and how that's going to be hard. And it's kind of like being a parent, right?
Yeah.
Where you try to teach your kids something and they don't want to listen to you.
No.
Right? You try to pave the way. You're like, look, don't do this because it's going to hurt. Yeah. And I know because I did it myself, yes. Right? But your kid just doesn't want to listen to you, nope. Right? Because they have to learn it the hard way. And I think identity is one of those things You could tell service members until you're blue in the face, until they're blue in the face. It's one of those things that you really just don't understand or get until you go through it by yourself. It is truly this part of your journey when you're transitioning where your heart, your mind, your emotions all connect in this one place where you have this epiphany where you're like, holy crap, I really am not Lieutenant Colonel Nunn, Chief Master Sergeant Hemingway, right? You're just like, that's not me anymore. And I don't know who I am anymore. And what are you telling me that that's not me? I mean, I know I've heard this. Yes. I've heard it.
Yes.
But I don't know why I haven't heard it.
Yes.
And it hurts.
It hurts.
And I'm supposed to figure it out?
Yes.
What do you mean I'm supposed to figure it out? This is all I know, right? And everyone thinks that, oh, it's only for those people that have stayed in and did the old timer, right? Like, because you're retiring.
Yeah.
It's for anybody. Whether you serve 2 years or 20 plus years, you're all going to go through it. Yeah. Because that uniform means so much to us, right? It is this family, this tribe, this connection. And when it's taken away from you, whether by choice or by force, you're just like, wait a minute, that's not me anymore, right? And now you got to figure, who the heck am I without that piece, right? And like you said, you're just kind of floundering for a while. And you got to figure out, like, what am I doing without it? Right? But it is a glorious ride. It really is. I'm not trying to scare people, but it is a journey. It really is. And I love it when people figure that out. When they come back to me and they're like, oh my God, Olivia, guess what I did? Guess what I figured out?
I had a mentor that she was my supervisor at one time, but her husband had also served. And he had just listening on to our conversation. And he grabbed the phone from her and he said, hey, listen here. You getting ready to retire? Nobody's going to know what a chief master sergeant is. As great as that position is and as, accomplishments, you need to figure out how you're going to say your name again. All right. Like practice that. And how do you introduce yourself? He says, I'm going to tell you, like, that is like the basic thing, but there's a lot of people who can't do that to the day. Because I used to get phone calls all the time. This is retired so-and-so, and I'm like, man, you've been retired for like 15 years. What are we talking about here? Right? Like, I was getting some of that. But then when he told me, like, the reality is nobody really understands that. And you've got to figure out how you're going to integrate back into the real world, as they would say, right? So, it is an identity shift. I mean, wearing a uniform for a very long time, every single day, it is just part of who you are. And now that's no longer you. And then you have to rebrand. That's why I'm in the space that I'm in. I'm like, we need to rebrand ourselves. We're still the leaders that we were developed to be. And you can't take that away from us because we have lived it. Okay. We can write 1,000,001 books about leadership. It's just that how do we introduce that back into this world and add value, right? Because we all have it. We're the most underrated population of people that have the most talent, because we've had to do a lot of different things and a lot of different scenarios that many people would not even dare to do. So, it is really trying to figure out who you are as a leader in your new chapter, which is, again, that's a process. It's a journey.
It is. What do you miss about the Air Force?
Oh, you know what? I miss the people. I really do.
It's always the people.
Great people. I mean, just doing God's work. I mean, really. In that space. And, not everyone is great. I'm not going to say that.
Every organization has its.
So because, a lot of times people think, oh my goodness, that everybody's getting in there, getting trained, and everybody's kind of doing the same things. And it's not really that. But the people that, are still serving now, that I had really great experiences with, if I could do that with them one more time, I would, but my day is over. But I mean, I don't know about you, Olivia, but if the balloon pops out here, there's going to be a lot of us coming outside going, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to corral ourselves up and we're going to make a plan to fight whoever it is who's coming for us. But, the men and women that are serving now in uniform, I give them mad props. Because there's a lot of things that they have to work through that we didn't have to work through. And it could be very challenging at times. So, but yeah, I've always said it's the people.
Yeah, I agree with you. What does Women of War mean to you?
Women of War. We're a different breed. It's just, we are cut from a different cloth. I have a lot of family and friends who ask me all the time, like, how did you do that? And, going to the war zone a couple of times in my career and coming back, it's not the physical scars, it's the invisible scars that I think that is most prominent of working through. Some of the decisions that we had to make were just from whatever we had. We didn't have all of the details to make the best decisions. We just made a decision, right? And some of those you kind of play back in your mind, or you think about it again. I'm like, I could have done that a little bit differently, or I should have done X, Y, and Z. And what I tell people, especially as women veterans, is that we got to give ourselves a lot more credit than what we do for ourselves. There's not a lot of women that are putting their hands up who want to go out here and do these types of things, and play in a community of men. I mean, it's a lot to wrap your head around, but I always see Women of War as being strong, resilient, courageous, fearless, ambitious, highly driven, and that's why sometimes people they misunderstand us because of the energy that we project. It's different, all right, because we've been through some things. So I have, again, respect and admiration for any woman who has worn the uniform for any length of time. Doesn't matter, if it was just, a short period of time or a long period of time. It is something that still is mind-boggling to me. Like, you pinch yourself, how did I get in there? And how did I get to a point where I was leading people? Like, it's crazy. So this is just a way to amplify our voices, in our experiences, and to let other women know that they're not alone. We see you. It is definitely something that we have to celebrate ourselves about.
I agree. I could spend all day talking with you.
Of course.
And when I see you at places, that's what we end up doing.
Yes, we do.
But you and I are both busy.
Yes.
So where can people find you? Where can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can get in touch with me anywhere on social medias, i.e. LinkedIn is the platform that I use every day. So you just find me at Rochelle Hemingway with one M. You can also find me on YouTube. I have a Slate to Success YouTube channel. I have a website, www.slaytosuccess.com. info@slaytosuccess.com is my email. Find me on Facebook at Rochelle Hemingway and on IG at The Slay Boss Lady.
Rochelle, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know I could spend hours with you. Yes. There's so much overlap in terms of our experiences. Thank you for sharing your experience. I know that there's so much more that we could dig into. I love that you talk about branding and that you offer that for our service members. I love watching your journey just explode, the success that you have, and I know there's more to come. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Women of War, proudly sponsored by Mill Mentor, where the military community finds its mentors. Until next time, keep showing up, speaking out, and standing strong.